Welcome to a World of Warship Blitz video. Today's video is the new Tier 8 Premium Heavy Cruiser, British Heavy Cruiser, the Cheshire. Now the Cheshire, as you can see, has 6 guns. It looks fairly large, but let's go have a look at the stats, because the stats is where it's at, and the stats is what... Well, anyway, so 34,102 hit points, 7.5% citadel protection, 12.5% fire and flooding resistance, 7.5% damage reduction, 9% torpedo damage reduction. Let's go compare that with something like the Prince Eugen. The Prince Eugen is, well, it has about 118 more hit points, not much in the grand scheme of thing. Much better citadel protection, so 12.5 rather than 7.5. Lift of 5 points. It's also a lift of 3 points on the damage reduction, and the torpedo damage reduction is 3 points better as well. So much tougher ship, the Prince Eugen. The Mainz is also a tougher ship, pretty much the same as the Prince Eugen, maybe a little less hit points, but the other armour values are pretty much the same. The Mayor has better citadel protection, slightly worse flooding and fire resistance. 2 points better, 1.5 points better citadel damage reduction, and 7.5%, which got worse torpedo damage reduction by 1.5. The Mogami, lighter again, 3,000, maybe 2,500 hit points off. The Cheshire, 10%, so better citadel protection, worse flooding and fire resistance, slightly better damage reduction, and way worse torpedo damage reduction. So the Cheshire is got a lot of hit points, but that citadel protection and damage reduction is very poor. Not as poor as on this ship, however, with a 7.5 is the same citadel protection. This has 4,000 less hit points. Flooding and fire resistance is less than the Cheshire. Damage reduction, obviously, that's a huge one. Yeah, very low there for the Mikhail Kutuzov, and torpedo damage reduction is, yeah, on par. I think a little bit better. So I think it's 9 with the Cheshire, is it? So the Bayard has the most hit points, 28,000. That's amazing. 10% citadel protection, so better than the Cheshire, but not as good as the Prince Eugen. Flooding and fire resistance starts to get into sort of average territory. Damage reduction is not that great, same as the Cheshire. 9% torpedo damage reduction, same as the Cheshire. So the Cheshire is a ship with a lot of hit points, but pretty soft. So likely to take a bit of a beating. So just be careful, going broadside onto big guns. Maneuverability, 33 knots, 13 seconds to get to full speed, 7.7 degrees per second, and turn time of 9 seconds. So that's a full 1.1 degrees per second faster in the turn than Prince Eugen. It's actually a knot faster than Prince Eugen, so 33.62. Accelerates faster, and the turn time is better. For the Mainz, it has the same turn time. The Mainz obviously has slightly better turning performance than the Prince Eugen, but it's still basically 0.9 of a degree per second off the Cheshire. Yep, so yes, so let's go have a look at the Mogami is 34 knots, so it's a bit faster, slower to accelerate, still doesn't come anywhere near the Cheshire, which is that 7.7 degrees per second, so it's 1.1 degree per second slower. 7.2, so getting the rudder across is a bit quicker, but you're not as fast in the turn. Mikhail Kutuzov, which is the lightest of the cruisers, a bit slower by 1 knot, longer time to get to full speed, 6.2 degrees per second rather than 7.7, so 1.5 degrees per second slower. The turn time is getting a rudder across a little bit quicker, but nothing in it. And the Bayard, 33 knots, so same speed as the Cheshire. Time to full speed, 12 seconds. I think that's pretty much on par with the Cheshire. Maximum turret reverse speed is 7.3. So just need to check your turn radius, your turn So we need to check your rudders, your turrets, to compare them with that turning, and then you can see how much trouble you're in as far as the need for main battery modification 1. Turn time is 9 seconds, so it takes the same amount to yank the rudder across as the good old-fashioned Cheshire. Okay, so let's go have a look at some guns, because guns is where it's all at. So it has 234mm guns, so 208 is roughly 8 inches, so 234 could be 9 inches. 10-second reload time, 11.25 kilometer range. There's only 6 guns, so we'll get back to that shortly. 838 HE damage, 11% fire chance, which is nice. 10, basically 1015 damage. 8 degrees per second turret traverse, that's 7.7 degree per second traverse, and the 8-second turret traverse means that you may want to consider putting some traverse onto this. So either as the modules or as the elite skill. Let's go compare it with the Prinz Eugen, which also has 10 seconds. This has 8 guns instead of 6. They fire slightly further at 11.58, so basically 0.33 of a kilometre further. Much less fire damage and lower fire chance. And even the AP damage at 991 is less than the 1015 by a little bit, but don't forget you've got 8 of these guns, you've got 6 of them on the Cheshire. Mainz has obviously got 6-inch guns, so faster reload, interestingly longer range but less damage, more of them and faster turrets. Same with Mikhail Kutuzov, which has the longest range, 7.8 seconds, so every 4 salvos out of this you're probably just approaching 3, just gone over 3 in the Cheshire. Huge range, 12.43, so that's over a kilometre further. Much less damage, much lower fire chance, but there are 12 guns firing more frequently. Slow turret traverse. The Bayard is also a light cruiser with lots of small guns. Mogami, probably not worth checking. Well, 9-second reload, so they are slow reloading. Further distance, 10.79, so not as far as the Cheshire. Less HE damage, slower chance of setting fire, way less AP damage, nearly half. Very slow turret traverse, even for 6-inch guns at 7.5, rather than the 8 of the Cheshire. For the Mayer, the Mayer is, 11 seconds, so it's slower, slightly shorter range. It's got 8 guns rather than the 6 of the Cheshire, and the Takao, which is basically the Mayer, has 12 instead of, or has 10 instead of the 8. Okay, so 8% fire chance is good, but not as good as the 11%, but then again you're putting less shells on target. 708 HE and 826 AP. So the Cheshire has by far the most powerful guns, which is interesting. Now, for the Tech Tree cruisers, I think the American cruisers have 8-inch guns, so nothing's larger than the Cheshire. Possibly, I'm just trying to think, the Hipper is, we've got them, the Prinz Eugen. Yeah, this by far has the largest guns, but the smallest number, which could be quite crippling, so let's just be a little bit careful about that. Torpedo tubes. It turns out that these torpedo tubes, 2x4 torpedoes with 47.6 second reload, 3599 damage, 7.5 kilometer range, 63 knots, is exactly the same as torpedoes that are on the Edinburgh. So this has Edinburgh torpedoes. Certainly doesn't have Edinburgh guns, but it has Edinburgh torpedoes. The AA damage is the highest, 245 large caliber and 260 small caliber with an 8.5 kilometer concealment, so surface detection. So the only thing with better surface detection among the premiums is Mogami at 8.22, but otherwise 8.5 is, or 8.16 for the Mayer. Otherwise 8.5 is pretty good, with the Prinz Eugen being at 9, the the mate's been pretty close to 9, the Mikhail Kutuzov approaching 10 kilometers, and the Bayard approaching 8.64 kilometers. So a little bit further, a little bit worse, but not by much. But all those AA values are much less. There's nothing in the mid 200s. All these AA values are significantly less than the AA values on the Cheshire. So it is, going to make life fairly interesting for aircraft. Right. So before we move on to looking at some of the special skills, let's just do a quick comparison with a couple of extra ships for context. First is the Cleveland. Now the Cleveland is not upgraded, so the hit points is probably higher in the final hull, but what doesn't change is the citadel protection and the flooding and fire resistance. Now for American cruisers, that flooding and fire resistance, instead of the 12.5, it is 20%, so these things are very good at very proof against random fires, hopefully. For the Edinburgh, what's interesting is this is probably the most agile of the light cruisers, and it's got a 7.8 degree per second turn traverse speed versus the 7.7 of the Cheshire. So the Cheshire is nearly as agile as the Edinburgh, which is just very interesting, really. Right, so let's go back to the Cheshire. Let's get rid of all our non-Cheshire things and have a look at the armory. You have a choice of a ship hit points +2, large calibre +5, which could be quite good for enough that sort of calibre, because that +5% on nearly 250 is, well, 12 +12 or something AA damage. And the main battery traverse speed +7%, but I think that main battery traverse speed +20 may be the thing to go, because you get a module that improves your dispersion, and I think with only 6 guns you are going to need to be improving your dispersion. So let's have a look at the details. So it has smoke generators, 3 smoke generators, which is sort of on par for premium British cruisers. It has an air defense alert, much like the Fiji and the Edinburgh does, but it has enough AA guns to make that really, 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 really worthwhile. And it has sonar, 1 sonar, which with battlefield support becomes 2 sonar, so I recommend battlefield support. Now, the other thing to mention with the Cheshire is that 245 large calibre AA and the 260 small calibre AA. Let's compare it with the, now it's an unupgraded Cleveland, so it may not be a particular stats comparison, but you can see 192, 183. It's possible those could end up in the same range, but the Cheshire certainly has excellent AA. Some final things, apart from the those consumables and those special skills. Is there anything else? There is an historical camo, obviously, which has all the standard main battery firing range +1, torpedo range +4, +4 for torpedo range, +4 for traverse speed, which is important, and -4% for surface detection. It's already got very good surface detection, so something to think about. I'm not sure how you collect this, whether or not it's a tokens event or going through loot boxes. Probably the thing that I'd worry most about is the fact that it's got very few guns, so its dispersion becomes really critical. And re-looking at the armory, I don't see precise aiming in there, so really those guns could be hard hitting, or the ship could be, well, in a lot of ways it looks very powerful. It does look a little bit fragile, but it's going to come down to those dispersion and the ease of usability of the guns, because I can take it from me, the torpedoes on the Edinburgh are sort of useful in certain circumstances, but your guns are your main weapons. Right, thank you for watching, everybody. So at some point I hope to take this out and see how it actually runs.